In the latest trailer for the Testament's Episode 8, alliances begin to shift, hidden emotions rise to the surface, and Agnes appears closer than ever to making a life-changing decision. But what exactly is the trailer trying to tell us? And what clues might hint at where the story is heading next? In this breakdown, we'll examine the key moments from the Episode 8 trailer, explore the deeper themes behind them, and discuss the most likely predictions for what could happen moving forward. One of the most important elements highlighted in the trailer for the Testament's Episode 8 is Agnes' deepening internal conflict. Over the course of the series, Agnes has gradually shifted from passive acceptance to quiet questioning. At first, her doubts appeared subtle, moments of hesitation, emotional discomfort, or silent observation. But in Episode 8, the trailer suggests that these thoughts are becoming impossible for her to ignore. What makes this progression significant is that Agnes is no longer simply reacting emotionally to isolated situations. She is beginning to connect patterns within Gilead itself, the control, the expectations, and the lack of personal freedom hidden beneath the system's promises of order and protection. This is an important stage in character development because awareness often comes before resistance. The trailer repeatedly frames Agnes in moments of isolation and reflection, emphasizing how mentally trapped she feels. Even when surrounded by authority figures or structured environments, there is a visible emotional distance in her reactions. That distance suggests someone who is starting to emotionally detach from the ideology she was raised to believe in. This reflects a common theme in dystopian storytelling. The moment an individual begins questioning a controlled system internally, the system's power over them becomes less absolute. However, the trailer also makes it clear that Agnes is conflicted, not rebellious. She still fears the consequences of stepping outside the boundaries imposed on her. That tension between fear and awareness is what makes her journey so compelling. For Agnes, marriage is not being treated as a personal choice rooted in love or compatibility. Instead, it appears as part of a larger social structure designed to maintain control and reinforce obedience. This is an important aspect of how Gilead operates. Individual desires are often secondary to the needs of the system. The trailer hints that Agnes is beginning to fully understand the weight of these expectations. Moments that should traditionally symbolize celebration or stability instead feel emotionally tense and restrictive. Her expressions and reactions suggest discomfort rather than excitement, emphasizing how trapped she may feel by the future being arranged for her. This reflects a key theme often explored in dystopian fiction. Authoritarian societies frequently use social institutions, such as marriage, family roles, and gender expectations, as tools for maintaining order and limiting personal autonomy. What makes Agnes' situation especially compelling is that her growing awareness now clashes directly with the role Gilead expects her to accept. The more she questions the system internally, the harder it becomes for her to comfortably step into the future being planned for her. At the same time, the pressure to obey remains enormous. In Gilead, refusing expectations does not simply create personal conflict, it can threaten safety, reputation, and survival itself. Aunt Lydia's role appears increasingly layered and emotionally complex. Up to this point, Lydia has functioned as both an enforcer of Gilead's rules and a guiding figure within the system. But the trailer suggests that her relationship with Agnes is becoming more difficult to manage as Agnes' doubts continue to grow. What makes Lydia such a fascinating character is that she rarely views herself as cruel or malicious. Instead, she seems to genuinely believe that discipline, structure, and obedience are necessary for survival within Gilead. From her perspective, control is not simply power, it is protection. However, the more Agnes begins emotionally distancing herself from Gilead's expectations, the more pressure Lydia faces to respond. The trailer hints at this tension through emotionally charged interactions and moments where Lydia appears more watchful and calculated than before. There's a sense that she recognizes something is changing in Agnes, even if it has not yet become open defiance. From an educational standpoint, this reflects another common theme in dystopian storytelling. Systems of control often rely not only on force, but also on authority figures who sincerely believe they are preserving order for the greater good. This complexity is what prevents Lydia from feeling entirely predictable. Her actions may become stricter, but they are also shaped by personal investment and emotional attachment. That creates uncertainty around how far she is willing to go to maintain influence over Agnes. While the system still appears powerful on the surface, the trailer hints that cracks are beginning to spread beneath that controlled image. These cracks are not necessarily dramatic acts of rebellion yet. Instead, they appear through hesitation, emotional tension, and quiet questioning from multiple characters. This is significant because authoritarian systems often depend on consistency and absolute belief. Once individuals begin doubting the system internally, maintaining total control becomes much more difficult. Dystopian stories frequently explore how systems of control weaken gradually rather than collapsing instantly. Change often begins with awareness, emotional conflict, and the inability to fully suppress individual thought. Episode 8 appears to continue building on that idea. The atmosphere in the trailer feels more unstable than before, with interactions carrying an underlying sense of uncertainty rather than absolute order. What makes this especially compelling is that the cracks are no longer isolated to one character. Instead, the trailer implies that the emotional pressure inside Gilead may be affecting multiple people at once, a dangerous development for any system built on obedience and silence. One of the most meaningful themes hinted at in the trailer for the Testaments Episode 8 is the conflict between emotional isolation and genuine human connection. Throughout Gilead, emotional control is just as important as political control. The system discourages independent attachment, limits personal expression, and promotes obedience over individuality. By restricting emotional freedom, Gilead makes it easier to maintain authority and reduce resistance. But the trailer suggests that this emotional suppression is becoming harder for Agnes to maintain. As her awareness grows, so does her emotional conflict. She appears increasingly disconnected from the role she is expected to play, while simultaneously becoming more aware of her own instincts, fears, and desires. That internal shift is important because human connection often becomes the first step toward personal awakening in dystopian narratives. Many dystopian stories use emotional isolation as a way to show how authoritarian systems weaken individuality. When people are prevented from forming authentic emotional bonds, they become easier to control. However, once genuine emotional understanding begins to return, it can challenge the system's influence in powerful ways. The trailer hints that Agnes may be approaching this turning point. Her reaction suggests someone who is no longer emotionally aligned with the environment around her, even if she has not fully acted against it yet. What makes this especially significant is that emotional awareness can become more dangerous than open rebellion. Once a person starts trusting their own feelings more than the system controlling them, obedience becomes increasingly fragile. As the trailer for the Testaments Episode 8 makes clear, the emotional and ideological tension inside Gilead is only continuing to grow. Agnes is becoming more aware of the system surrounding her, and Lydia appears increasingly conflicted, and the pressure of obedience is starting to clash with personal identity in ways that feel impossible to ignore. What once seemed stable now feels uncertain, and that uncertainty may be the beginning of major change. From an educational perspective, Episode 8 continues exploring some of the series' biggest themes: control versus freedom, obedience versus individuality, and the role emotional awareness plays in challenging authoritarian systems. The big question now is this: will Agnes continue following the path Gilead has chosen for her, or is she finally approaching a point where silence and obedience are no longer possible? Speech Balloon. Share your predictions and theories in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more The Testaments trailer breakdowns, episode analysis, and future predictions.